2 and continuing off where we left off from, of course, part 1. Now, of course, I'm moving at really fast speed because I drink a lot of caffeine. Actually, it's sped up about 300%. And I put pale sand, his color here. And I'm going with a highlight, a dry brush, but with a little dampness added to the brush. Drop of water, and makes the dry brush a little wetter, but it goes on a little smoother. Here you can see basically giving each of the figures a light dry brushing so we can apply a little effect later. It's kind of an experiment because sometimes most of the time I will do this dry brush that you see here, and it makes it look like a light snow almost appears on the figure, and it can obscure a lot of the color, but it's actually like a highlight at the same time. And normally I would go back in and recoat the paint again with the lighter or same color that was on it before. So it's kind of a double painting, which some people might not like. It's definitely, for me, it's speed painting, but for others it might be a whole extra step they want to avoid. But as you can see, I go through it pretty quick, using the sand color, of course, for the sandy base. I'm going to later put on some flocking, maybe a bush or two here and there, something small, because pirates jump from land to sea pretty quick, and I don't want something too outrageously jungly or something tropical like that. Now the highlight that we put on here definitely pops out some of the details that were previously hidden, and we'll later go in once again with the color. Now the tricky part here is I do enamels first, when normally I would do the cover up of the highlight first and then move to the enamel process. I'm going to call it a process because you go in, you put your enamels in, which we'll talk about later, and then you reduce some of it off, which will reduce back to this highlight level. But they look fine the way they're painted now, but I like the added detail. I like the weathering. Remember, I don't do the classic clean look that you might find with Game Workshop miniatures. I'm more of a grim dark. Alright, at this point we move to the next section. We've got all the dry brushing kind of out of the way. It's quick, like I said, a light highlight pass, and you'll see I covered the figure in burnt sienna or raw umber, depending on what I'm doing, with oil paint. So this is an oil paint, and one of my problems is I always move too fast. I jump from one acrylic to the oil to the next sometimes, and I have to remind myself to slow down or bring out the hair dryer. And right now I don't have my hair dryer because my puppy chewed through the cord, and I need to get another one. However, you can see me coating these things in pretty heavy brown. Brown I use for more organic paint jobs, and black I will use for mechanical, like robots, tanks, whatnot. Now I'll let this brown sit on the figure, as you can see, and it looks like it ruins the paint job. Now at this point it's not enamel, it's actually oil paint. Enamel dries faster and oil paint dries slower. And this is not a build tongue. A build tongue is designed for miniature painting. This is just straight up oil paint, and so I mix it down a lot with white spirits. As you can see, I'm trying to remove a lot of it from the white shirt areas or lighter colors at this point, by just dabbing a little white spirits on it and washing it out. However, with oil paint, it covers everything with the oily residue, which you'll see in a little while. It kind of hampers my painting, and I had to kind of take a break for a little while, a couple hours, to get the paint to dry so I could put another acrylic on top of that. So now you see we're moving into the reduction of oil paint, which is one of its strengths. It's got many painting oils. Is different, shouldn't really be feared, but it is a different medium and can be treated differently from acrylics, which dry really fast. And with oils, you have a little time, depending on how much spirits you mix with them. You can see here that I go through and I take all of the oil paint pretty much off. No matter how much you think you take it off, it's still there. It leaves, like I said, like we'll call it a micro thin layer of oil paint on it, even though I'm basically removing it with a makeup type of application. Camera having a little trouble focusing there, and you can see that it makes them look very weathered and haggardly with the reduction technique from the oil paints. Let's see if I can get you some better shots here at the end of this one. The finished products, finished figures. But you can see I go in and pretty much remove it from all the areas light would hit, and it's kind of desaturates the paint at the same time, probably adding to that weathered look. So I will go through that and you'll see what's coming up in a minute. And it was, like I said, kind of a little bit of an experimentation. I'm always experimenting with stuff and harebrained ideas. This is the part where I kind of messed up. I rushed it because I'm videotaping, and I'm going in, and now going back over the paint job with the acrylics. However, it's not staying like I want, but you know, I'm patient. I'll push it as much as possible. This blue is really not very opaque. It's very transparent and watery of that line, and it's just not sitting or sticking like I want it to, and that's because of that oil paint has not dried yet, and I'm pushing it, you know. And here's where I'm like, you know, I'm spinning the figure a little bit more than normal, and judging, and I'm pushing a little bit, but I think when I get to the green colors where I finally go, let this dry a little more, because I can still see wet paint, oil paint in the cracks, and I don't really need to mix those two. But I'm a speed painter, so I'm always pushing. And just like that, 5 hours went by, and I'm back to the captain there, and we're putting on acrylic paint on top of that oil layer, and we're putting in more transparent paint on top of oil paint, on top of a highlight, on top of transparent paint, on top of a zenithal white primer for the base. And the layering is really, I think, what brings out a lot of cool stuff in this technique, and the figures look really more realistic because of that. And I know the grim dark techniques are usually used for, you know, that sci-fi 40K thing. But really, a lot of that technique is borrowed from historical painting figures. Like one of the examples for the historicals is just go back and look at the quote, the dip process, end quote. Um, Kind of barbaric in my opinion, the dip, but you know, it had its had its time and its place. And here it's just really kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Evolved painting process. But really, I'm going through here. I'm leaving some of those highlights in there and recovering a lot of it. The highlights still show through, but some of them I just leave straight like they are on the figure from the previous steps. Re-blacken the blacks, put in some shadows, re-brown the browns. The process that I'm using really desaturates, like I said, the figures, so putting in those vibrant colors, bringing them back a little bit with those highlights on there really helps the figure quite a bit. Detailing coming up a little bit. The process kind of dulls down the silver that we've done before with the highlighting and the brown oil paint, which is good though because it sits into the cracks of the weapons and kind of gives it this old rusty look. Because whenever you mix metal and salt water, you're going to get a lot of rust unless you oil and clean your weapons like all the time. And pirates probably didn't do that a lot. I mean, kept them generally clean, but salt water is what it is. So you can see here I'm going through and putting back in some of the silver highlights, but I'm not going in to paint everything. I'm leaving some of that brown in the cracks, so it kind of I call it pinging. Go through and hit all the high spots and bigger pieces that you could see really easy. So that's a quick detailing thing. Then I go through and silver up some of the buttons, and then later I'll even go in and gold up some of the buttons on top of that silver on certain pieces And then some jewelry. Some of the girls have earrings, and some of the guys as well. And then a few pommels of some of the weapon too. So. We're coming to the end of the video. Thanks for watching so far. This will be the last of these. I'll probably make some more painting videos of some of the other crews sold by Wargames Foundry. And got to do some detailing. I rim the base with black and do a final pass with detail. Here you can see I'm cleaning up some of the steps I might have forgotten. And let's take a look. Here's the Freebooters band in their glory. I've used a really bright light. They look a little downtone in regular light, but there's Molly and the crew, as well as the captain, and there's Peg. Came out pretty good. He's a little overwashed right there with the light. They look really good on the table, but you can see they have a real weathered look, and it comes across as real. There's Mad Alfonso. And let's see, there's the captain. Gold buttons and swords all rusty. And there's our little barkers. They're helping consult on this film. Rue and Duke. Rue's got the green collar. Have a good one.